we are pleased to be joined by Scott Musser, AARP's Senior Strategic Campaigns Advisor. We'll start with a brief video, and then Scott will share some additional highlights. Scott, the floor is yours.
I wanted to share the video. Hold on one second, Susan. Can you stop the share really quick so I can share the video?
The new 2026 Social Security Cost of Living Adjustment has been announced, and it's 2.8%. That means Social Security retirement benefits are going up by an average of about $56 a month, starting in January. The Cost of Living Adjustment, or COLA, isn't random. It's calculated using something called the Consumer Price Index for Urban Workers and Wage Earners, or CPIW. The government compares the average CPIW from July, August, and September of the current year to the same 3-month average from the previous year. If the CPIW goes up, Social Security payments will follow suit. For many retirees, Social Security is the only inflation-protected income they have, and people with fixed incomes often struggle with rising costs, especially for things like healthcare that typically take a bigger bite of your budget as you age. If you're interested in learning more about how COLA works, we made an entire video dedicated to that. Link is in the description. For more Social Security news, you can visit aarp.org/Social Security.
Great, thanks, Iris. And thought that was a good video to share. Obviously, some good news on Social Security with the COLA increase. I think it obviously ties into some of the conversation today. We know that Social Security has a huge impact on people's financial stability going forward, and especially as caregivers, what they can do to make sure they're able to take care of themselves and their loved ones. We also are in the middle of National Family Caregiver Month, so I want to give a shout out to all the caregivers across the country. We know we just did a recent survey and found that there's over 1.5 million caregivers in Virginia alone that are taking care of caregivers, their cared loved ones from the ages 18 and above. So just a couple other quick things. We know the government's now back open, hopefully for at least the rest of the year. But we've been working in DC to make sure that things are being taken care of as far as our members and others that rely on Social Security and Medicare. We're also fighting back on some bad prescription drug legislation that would actually limit the negotiations that Medicare is able to do. But yeah, just a few different things going on. But thanks for everybody for joining. I'll turn it back over to Iris.
All right. Well, thanks, Scott. So now it is my pleasure to introduce our two guests and AARP's Social Security Program Manager, Jamie Lyell and Susan Caicedo-Correa, AARP's Program Manager for Financial Resilience. Jamie Lyell is a dedicated professional with a background in psychology and social services. A graduate of Coppin State University and a holder of a master's in industrial organizational psychology. Jamie has served as a technical expert in the Social Security Administration and currently works as a program manager at AARP, leading initiatives to strengthen Social Security. Susan Caicedo-Correa, PMP, is a program manager for financial resilience programming at AARP, leading initiatives that strengthen financial security and consumer education in the savings and planning space. With over 14 years at AARP Foundation, she has driven national programs like Back to Work 50 Plus and Digital Skills Ready at 50 Plus, empowering tens of thousands of older adults to build economic mobility and digital confidence. Please put all your questions for Jamie and Susan in the Q&A box. And now I want to welcome Jamie and Susan.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Iris, for that introduction. And welcome, everyone. Again, my name is Susan Caicedo Correa, and I'm a program manager with ARP. As Iris mentioned, I've been with the organization for 15 years, working with older adults within job search, digital learning, financial, and caregiving. So I'm so excited to share this presentation with you today. And just one additional thing I wanted to share is, I am a caregiver myself. I caregive for my father between my brother and I. And I also have 3 children of my own. So I'm in that sandwich generation. So I totally understand, all the challenges that come with caregiving. And I'm hoping that today we can share lots of tips to help you on your caregiving journey. And Jamie, did you want to share anything additional about yourself as well?
Ultimately, thank you for the introduction, Iris. And everyone, thank you again for joining us today for our special series for this month. Ultimately, I do love educating on Social Security at AARP because it gives me the chance to empower our members with the knowledge they need to navigate their benefits. Ultimately, ensuring fairness and understanding in Social Security is just so crucial, and being part of AARP allows me to make a positive impact on the lives of those who have contributed so much to our society. So just happy to be here and answer any Social Security questions you may have as well.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. All right, so let's get started with our presentation. Just a reminder, this presentation provides general ideas and guidance, and so we always recommend that you consult a professional for advice regarding your personal situation. And we already did introductions, but this is just our photos. I'm gonna skip through these. Okay. So today we're going to talk about Social Security as an income source. We're going to discuss planning for the future for family caregiving and how to pay for care. We'll go from high-level information right down to specific issues and then all the resources that we can use to help us with our journey. We're going to save questions for the end, but please feel free to put those in the chat. Okay, and just a reminder, just don't share any confidential information in the chat. And so as Iris mentioned, AARP's mission is to empower people to choose how they live as they age. So that means family caregivers of all ages are key to achieving that mission. And as a family caregiver, you help empower people to choose how they live as they age. And we all know that's a challenge, and so we want to support you as you navigate that journey. So let's dive in. We're going to talk about kind of why is the topic of caregiving, planning for the future, and how we pay for care more urgent than you may realize. And that is kind of what we're going to go into now. So first, the first reason is that caregiving is nearly universal part of the human experience. And so many people don't really self-identify with the term caregiver. And so to help you get a picture of today's family caregiver, I want to ask you a few questions. So we'll use the chat in this. If any of the following is true for you now or in the past, put a yes in the chat. So first one is, do you help a loved one with household tasks such as cleaning, laundry, or yard work? Do you drive to doctor's appointments, make shopping trips, or run other errands? Do you communicate with health professionals and coordinate healthcare, medication? And do you help with a loved one's finances or help pay their bills? And so I'm seeing yeses in the chat for sure. These are a lot of things that we do for our loved ones. And so if you do these things, you are or you have been a caregiver. And I love this quote here by former First Lady Rosalind Carter. There are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need a caregiver. Thank you for sharing. Okay. So even though it's nearly universal, it's still kind of like that secret second job for most caregivers who are working. And that's usually the majority of caregivers. So 7 out of 10 caregivers also work full or part-time. And ARP research shows that only half of family caregivers tell their supervisor about their family kind of caregiving responsibilities. And 2/3 of them expect to have trouble juggling work and caregiving. So, employers assume roughly 1/3 of employees are caregivers, but it's really over half of their employees. And so, we've been working with employers to make sure that they are providing resources to help their employees. But for you, all of this can make it just stressful experience, both at work and at home. So if you are a working caregiver, then it's really important for you to create plans, both for you and your care recipient. And that's just going to help you ensure caregiving doesn't create any pressure at work or in your own financial life. Okay, so caregiving expenses, they're going to have an impact on your overall financial well-being. And let's take a look at these statistics. So caregivers are spending on average $7,242 each year on caregiving expenses. 3 in 10 dipped into their personal savings. 1 in 5 spent less on their health care. 1 in 5 saved less for retirement. 1 in 10 withdrew retirement savings. 1 in 10 took out a loan, and 1 in 2 quit their job or reduced their hours, mainly stating that they had to because they just couldn't afford the care. And that's just really important to know. Some do it because they want to, but others really just didn't have an option to do it. So we can see a lot of this financial pressure of caregiving, and the importance of creating a plan on really how are we going to pay for these care expenses, ideally before the care is needed, putting all of the steps in place now so that you are prepared for the future. So the first step in planning for future care needs and really how to pay for care is to question some of our assumptions. So we're going to use the chat. And the first question here I have is, what percentage of adults over age 65 will develop severe long-term service and support needs? And you can put A, B, or C in the chat. Is it A, 41%, B, 56%, or C, 70%? So go ahead, put your answer in the chat. I'll give you a second to decide. I hope we're getting some answers there.
Seeing a lot of B's and C's.
Okay, great. So the answer is 70%. So 70% will need help with 2 or more activities of daily living for at least 90 days, or they'll experience severe cognitive impairment. 48% of adults over age 65 will receive paid care. So that means 22% of adults age 65 plus will need long-term services and supports, usually provided by unpaid caregivers. And I'm going to move on to our next question. Again, let's use the chat on this. So what percentage of adults over age 50 believe that Medicare will pay for in-home aids, assisted living, and nursing home care? Is it A, 26%, B, 46%, or C, 73%? And go ahead, put your guess in the chat.
Seeing a mixture of A and C.
Okay, A and C. So the answer is 46% of seniors believe that Medicare will pay for their care expenses, and 48% of their children believe that as well. But generally, Medicare does not pay for long-term support and services. It may in some circumstances, but this is probably one of the most important takeaways from today's session. Medicare does not cover all expenses associated with long-term support and services. I just wanted to repeat that. And what that means is your older family members may tell you, oh, I have everything set, everything's in place, I have Medicare, it's going to cover everything, you don't need to worry about it. And then they may be caught off guard once they get to that point and they learn that a lot of these expenses are not going to be covered. And when we look at some other data, what we see is that on average, 70-year-old is likely to have about $200,000 in retirement savings, and on average receive about $21,000 per year in social services. So that needs to cover the cost of their care needs for an average over the next 10 years. And so making the assumption that Medicare is going to cover that is not something we want to do. We want to make sure that we're planning in advance. And our last poll here is, what was the median annual cost of an assisted living facility in 2023? So this may have changed in the past 2 years. But in 2023, is it $25,280, B, $64,200, or C, $71,700? And assisted living includes like residential arrangements that provide personal care and health services.
A lot of C's for 71,700.
Okay. It might have gone up. For 2023, the median annual cost of assisted living was $64,200 per year. And then the average stay is usually 2 years. So you multiply that by 2, you're at $128,400. And 60% of assisted living residents will then move up to a skilled nursing facility, which usually has a higher cost. And remember, I mentioned that the average 70-year-old has about $200,000 saved and about $20,000 in their Social Security benefits. And the average lived to age 80. And so we want to make sure that we are considering those costs. And if you're thinking about moving, the map here on the screen will tell you kind of where the cost may vary. So if you're in the darker blue, it's usually a higher cost than when you're in like those lighter green or yellow states. And so as you're considering moving your loved ones, that's also something to look at when it comes to covering the cost. Okay, so just a quick reflection, kind of what most surprised you in that set of information that we just talked about. And again, this is more high level information and data that I have shared with you, but if there was something that really jumped out, please feel free to enter that in the chat. And Jamie, if you want to share any of those, feel free.
Not seeing any come through just yet. Everyone's probably still typing.
Okay, I know that was a lot, but definitely
said the costs were very high.
Yeah, definitely that's kind of the general reaction is the costs are high and really, how are we going to cover it? And that kind of moves us into our next topic. And so as we're creating a plan on how to pay for care, or how to help our family members come up with their plan to pay for their care, like what are the things that we need to consider? And so we have 6 key ideas that will help you develop your plan for how to pay for this care. The first is really insisting on those conversations. And we know that having those conversations are difficult. So we will go through some tips around that. Using a framework to help you plan. Survey all available resources that are out there that will help you with the cost. Finding and using advisors. These are professionals that will help guide some of those personal questions that you might have. Building and using a budget, and then prioritizing your own well-being. So we're going to go through all 6 of these. So the first step is really to make sure that you're having those conversations with your care recipient. And as I mentioned, that is not easy to do. Really talking about these topics are hard on both sides, the caregiver and the care recipient. And only 32% of people have talked with their parents about their future financial needs. And that's fewer than have talked with their parents about their own will or estate plan. But these conversations are critical. They will really frame how your family members can access the type of care that they need. and may have a significant direct effect on your financial well-being as well. And so here are some thoughts about like how can we approach these conversations about how to pay for the care that is needed. One thing to think about is kind of who might participate in the conversation. Of course, you want your care recipient to be involved, yourself, but are there other family members that should be part of the conversation? Do you have a financial advisor or an elder care attorney that you want to include in the conversation? So think about who should be involved in that conversation. And then we also have a list of questions that you might want to ask and discuss during that. And you'll be able to get this presentation later, so you'll be able to see these questions, but just throwing a few out there, kind of what types of care may be needed, what monthly spend can they afford, are there any assets they can leverage to increase their available spend, is their income at a level that is likely to qualify for support programs? And so there's a list of questions here that will help you guide that conversation. But also keep in mind that there's often a substantial gap between eligibility for Medicaid coverage and the ability to pay for care out of pocket. And for many people who use Medicare, they will need to figure this out. And usually an elder care attorney is the great resource to help you understand your personal situation when it comes to that. And so here is a great tool for you to use. It's the ARP Family Caregiving Guide, and it has a lot of questions in here that will help you get that conversation started so that you guys can start putting a plan together. It's offered in other languages. There's also a guide that's specific to military veterans and LGBTQ community as well. And so there's very tailored support in the additional guides as well. And so that was kind of a lot of information there, and this whole process can be overwhelming. And so we definitely recommend with just choosing one action item that will help you through your journey and tackling that by just choosing one of these experiments that we have listed. Like maybe it's you're going to go look at the ARP Family Caregiving Guide to help with those initial conversations that you want to have. Or you share this video presentation with siblings or other family members that are going to help you through this whole process. Or you ask your future care recipient to share the guide with their financial advisors or anyone to really kind of just start those initial conversations. So we hope that you choose one of these to do within the next few weeks to kind of move you forward in creating your plan. Okay. And I'm going to hand it over now to Jamie.
Okay, thank you, Susan. So using your framework to help you create a plan. For the second step is how to create a plan on how to pay for care and how it's used for a framework. So just as we need to frame a house before we can fill rooms, we need to have a structure to help us plan that includes all the different types of support our care recipients might be able to use to afford the care that they need. Go to the next slide. Yes. So a structured approach helps you in two ways. First, it can help bring us mental clarity in a process that can feel emotional and complex. It can help us avoid feeling overwhelmed, make it easier to ask good questions, and to think strategically about our decisions. It also helps us with managing the project itself, making sure we look for all the resources that we can use, especially those that have low out-of-pocket costs. Using a framework also makes it easier to share the work of researching and lining up the various program support that we might find. And here is our simple but powerful framework. Essentially, you'll look for resources in three buckets. First, government resources. Second, community-based resources from nonprofits and community groups. And then finally, the out-of-pocket costs that a care recipient or caregiver may choose to fill in the gaps of if the government and community-based resources don't cover the full cost of care. You'll notice that you'll look for resources and support, not just the care recipient, but also the caregiver. This way you'll get as much support as possible because both parties need support. And the third step is creating a plan for how to pay for care. It's the one that usually takes the longest, but it's easiest to share across a care team or group of family members. It's researching the resources that a care recipient is eligible to use to help access and pay for their care. So this is where we use the framework to keep track of the information that we gather. So let's look at government-based support. We've listed examples here that you see on the screen, but it's not an exhaustive list. You can use it to be sure your research or that you research each one and add those to that are helpful to your how to pay for care plan. Now, if you work through this part of the framework, you'll be sure to find out if the support is available from all levels of government, federal, state, and local. For example, Medicare is a federal program, but Medicaid is administered at the state level. So while Medicare coverage is the same nationwide, Medicaid eligibility and coverage changes state to state. So if the caregiver and the care recipient live in different places, be sure to research the state and local government support that is available for both of them. And it is also important to note that eligibility for some government provided supports are income-based. So you will need this information to apply for programs such as Medicaid, SNAP, or other state and local programs. And going through all the government program information can feel like a lot. So here are a few tips for starting out. So first, if the care recipient uses Medicare, make use of the free Medicare advisors early and often. Every state has a Medicare SHIP advisor, a resource that provides free, live advising that is personal to your situation. So calling the connecting caregivers to Medicare will enable you to speak with Medicare on behalf of the care recipient. And the Extra Help program can offer great opportunities to reduce your out-of-pocket costs for Medicare users. Second, contact government agencies well before you may need to use their programs. There are often specific steps to prove eligibility or actually getting services set up. And then finally, choose one spot to keep call notes and copies of paperwork, as you might need to refer to it or be able to show it again. And our hot topic in government-based support part of our framework is always understanding the differences between Medicaid, Medicare, and paid Medicare supplements. Now, this chart that you see here on the screen simplifies things, but it is a great way to start to understand things. Generally, Medicaid covers most aspects of paid care provision. Medicare usually only covers short-term, in-home, or residential rehabilitation services. Medicare supplement programs sometimes pay for a part of the cost that Medicare does not cover. And we'll go to the next slide. Yes. Oh, I lost it on my end. Give me one moment. One moment. I lost it on my end. There we go. Now, the framework of government resources was packed. This one community-based support includes nonprofit and community groups that can provide for someone who needs care for caregivers. Some operate across the nation, while others are specific to a state or locality. They can often help with things like housing, transportation, meals, and grocery support, and some types of care provision. And using community-based support, it's likely that each one specializes in one type of support. So a caregiver will need to coordinate the various providers. The best way to find the community-based support in communities of both the care recipient and the caregiver is to contact their local area agency on aging. The resource section of our presentation has links as well where you can find yours. Now, our tips to get you started with community-based support are simple. So first, Start with using these fully and as early as possible. Your care recipient will need some time to become comfortable accepting assistance from the community organizations rather than formed from family or from being totally independent. So starting early eases the financial and logistics pressure on caregivers, but also can be a good way for care recipients to slowly adjust to needing help. Second, don't try to do all the research yourself. Contact your AAA, your AAA, sometimes called a Center for Independent Living, and use eldercare.gov to get a list of the resources available in your area. And third, just as with the government support programs, keep great notes of calls and visits and copies of all paperwork, especially any paperwork that shows eligibility for a specific program. And the third type of resource that you'll build into your plan for how to care for how to pay for care are the financial resources of your care recipient or sometimes of the caregiver based on that person's personal decision. So first, you'll likely consider any resources that your care recipient has that they can use towards the cost of their care. Now, this is not a full list, but when you look at it, you can see that it's all different types of financial resources that an individual might have. The list will be different for each care recipient. To create your plan, though, you'll need to know about all the different types of financial resources they have so they can be considered for the plan. The right side of our framework also talks about how caregivers and some employers offer adult backup care for benefits, which working family caregivers can use to pay for backup adult care days per year. Some employers offer paid or unpaid leave for caregivers to use to care for an adult family member. Now, remember that a family can use employer benefits in a coordinated way. So, for example, 3 adult siblings each take the amount of leave that they have available and coordinate so the care recipient has an extended time of care coverage. So this area is also where the sensitive topic of how a caregiver might choose to draw on their own financial resources to help pay the costs of care that aren't covered by government, community, or the care recipient's resources for out-of-pocket costs. Now, AARP research shows that caregivers spend an average of $7,200 per year of their own after-tax dollars on caregiving expenses. Every family situation is different, and there is no right or wrong answer to how you handle this part of paying for care. Now, we do hope that by sharing information about government and community resources, you're able to research and use those as fully as possible, which hopefully reduces the level of out-of-pocket costs for everyone. So our tips on how to approach out-of-pocket pay for care. So first, you want to try to protect your own long-term financial well-being if possible. If you do use your own resources, try to work with other family members to share that burden if it feels right. Two, if you care for recipient, if your care recipient is in a gap between Medicaid eligibility and private pay, you might want to consider with an elder care attorney or financial advisor to design the best approach. But you want to be aware that the long-term care policies sold today are very different than what has been sold decades ago. And yes, a hot topic for many is a long-term care insurance. You may have wondered about this type of insurance or have a policy already. So we're going to talk about it right here. So traditional long-term care policies work like a car or home insurance. You pay premiums and make claims if you need covered services. Typical policies spell out how much coverage is available for certain services. Your eligibility for benefits start when or if you can no longer perform a set number of activities necessary for daily life, such as bathing, dressing, eating, using a toilet, getting in and out of bed and chairs, and managing with all of that. Well, eligibility also starts if you become cognitively impaired. Now, once you become eligible for premiums are usually waived while you receive benefits. You lose coverage if you stop paying premiums for the need of benefit, if the need of benefit arises. So different amounts may be allowed for the care in your home, a nursing home, or elsewhere. As far as whether it's a good option, we can tell you that the market in the last few years has changed. So making available plans more costly while they cover fewer services. There are also a lot of more restrictions for pre-existing conditions and significant waiting periods. So whether it's a good option for you depends on your situation, your care needs. So we ultimately encourage you to do your research. If you already have a plan and are struggling with the premiums, an option is to reduce the benefits to keep the plan rather than quit altogether. Okay, and now it's time to pick one easy, quick experiment to help you research the different types of support you might build into your plan. Now, instead of tackling the whole challenge at once, we suggest you design a small, short experiment to make incremental progress. So set yourself up for success and keep it specific, short, and small. If you can just find 15 minutes this week, or next week, you can make progress. Stanford researchers have found that this small win approach is the best way to create new habits or sustained effort to address a challenge. So here are some ideas that you see here on the screen. So ask your family members if they purchase long-term care insurance. If so, review their policy with an elder care attorney to be sure you know how to use it. Talk with your care recipient or recipients about working with a financial advisor. And then 3, if your care recipient is a veteran or active military, research support available from the Veterans Administration and use AARP's Military Caregiving Guide. And I am going to turn it back over to Susan. I'm gonna get a drink of water. I felt like I was talking for a while.
Thank you, Jamie. That was a lot of information, and it definitely can feel overwhelming, which is why we say, just take one step at a time to start making these calls so that you are ready. Choosing the one experiment, figuring out if they have a policy. Those are the examples that we were providing just to make sure to make it more manageable. And there is time to plan for the future, and so we're trying to provide you with all the tips to make the journey easier. But I'm going to go into kind of our 4th step in really how to create a plan for how to pay for care to find advisors and talk with them regularly as your needs and plans can change over time. So there is free assistance available to you, and we have some resources that you can explore that will help pay for things. And so we recommend that you talk with multiple advisors. Um, and also prepare some questions really before you talk with them. Do your online research, like write those questions down. Take notes when you're talking with them because I know if I don't write it down, I will forget. So make sure that you are taking notes with every conversation so that you can kind of remember how everything works and what follow-ups you need to do. And if you can, really include your care recipient as much as you can to really help them stay informed of all the information that you're looking into for them. And use their ideas and resources to update your kind of how to pay for care plan and budget. And we'll get into the budgets a little later. So, I mentioned this can all feel stressful to think of really finding, researching, choosing advisors. So, we're hoping that this chart can help you. And we've listed a lot of resources here. So, this is a great chart to really share with other members of your family who are helping you with this journey. Everyone can take the lead of making calls and doing the research to help you as well. I did in the chart, you'll see like those $2 signs, like elder law attorneys and financial advisors. Those do cost money, but those are things that you should also look into considering, speaking with those professional advisors. But start with all the other resources to kind of get this going for you. And so again, want to keep this just simple. Let's choose one step that we want to tackle, instead of just tackling everything at once. And so here's some options we have. So if your family member uses Medicare, contacting the local SHIP Medicare advisor at shiphelp.org. Ask for a personal consultation. That is one thing you can do. Calling your area agency on aging to really just learn about what resources are available for your family member. What are the things that can help reduce the cost, and how to get access to these programs. And then if your family member may fall into the gap between Medicaid eligibility and the ability to privately pay for care, talking to an elder care attorney, an initial conversation, just to kind of start planning for that. So just choosing one of these things, to kind of start gathering the information that you need. Okay, our fifth step in how to create a plan for how to pay for care is to create a budget for your care recipient, or a separate budget for each one of your care recipients. And you may need one for your aunt and maybe another one for your grandfather. But really, budgets are key to framing decisions and conversations. So, if your care recipient, if you're living in the same home, it might be a combined budget, but really making sure that you have a separate budget for all the costs associated with caregiving, because that's the total amount that we're trying to figure out what government programs there are, what community resources are out there to cover those costs. So what we have for you is the ARP's financial workbook for family caregivers, and this is going to help you create the budget. It is an entire workbook that will walk you through all the things you need to think about that should be in your budget. It is available in other languages, Chinese and Spanish, and there is a version for military veterans. So in the workbook, it will cover, there's 5 sections: health and health planning. This is everything that is involved with their health. And it's a great place to just document like all of the doctors involved, where they're located, just to have it all in one place. 'Cause let's say something happens, you're super busy. Like, is there a family caregiver that can just pick up this information? Or they're not going to their usual facility, they're going somewhere else that may not have all the health information. This is a great way to share with all of your family, so you all have the information in one place. Housing and transportation, is there a rent, mortgage? How do we pay for all that? Are they driving? Do they have insurance? So there's all the questions around housing and transportation and the costs involved with that. What are the assets? What are the debts? And then it goes into, let's take all that information and let's create those budgets. And then there's a list of resources at the end. So budgeting for yourself and your care recipient, can help you find ways to ensure your family members receiving the care that they need. First with their own resources, then looking into those community and government supports. As I mentioned, there is still the average caregiver is still spending those $7,242 per year. These are the out-of-pocket caregiving expenses. And so here's just an example of using a simple compound interest calculator. If you are putting this money away and investing it using a 4% annual return, after 5 years, you could have gained $60,385. I mean, 15 years, sorry, when you retire. So basically, like, you could be putting away these costs for your future needs. And so let's figure out what are ways to cover these out-of-pocket expenses today with these programs so that you can make sure that you're set for the future. And this is just a visual example of how much money you can gain by putting this away in the stock market. Really, I know some people might just talk about like, oh, it's just a few groceries over here while I go, I'm just adding a few things there, but all of those costs add up. And really, there is no right or wrong way on, how those funds are used. But this is just helpful to understand as you're making those decisions at that point in time, really thinking about, okay, what could this have meant for me if I would have put it away? So again, we want to take action. Here are some things that you can do. Get that financial workbook for family caregivers. It is an amazing tool to really help put everything in one place and get your budgets in place. Use it to create your own budget and make decisions around your personal financial boundaries. Like, how much are you willing to pay out of pocket to support caregiving needs? And compare it to create and compare budgets for 2 options of your family members' care. So if you decided on home health aides or assisted living, like, what will that look like? And the final step we'll talk about is how to prioritize your own short-term and long-term well-being. And it's last, but we want to make sure that it's freshest in your mind after today's conversation, because it's so important to prioritize yourself. So remember your own needs. This includes valuing your well-being, setting those financial boundaries, setting those emotional boundaries, notice cultural norms and expectations, gender norms and expectations, and really staying connected with professional sense of purpose and community. And then value your financial health as well. Help adult family members use all the available support early and fully to help cover these costs. So here are some action steps around that. With the area of your personal spending, calling the area agency on aging, maybe interviewing 2 financial advisors. We have a guide to financial advisors, and talking with a friend and family member about the list of ideas. So now I am going to hand it over to Iris.
Wow. Susan, that's a lot of information to take in. I'm glad that you sent the references so we can pull down the caregiver's guide. And I'm sitting here with my camera trying to click on the screen so I could grab some of those information sections that I really needed to take care of myself. What a wonderful presentation. I've got a few questions here. Didn't really see anything come up in our Q&A box, but I do have a few things. And let's go to someone who plans to retire at 62. Will they be able to continue to work full-time and receive their Social Security?
Okay, I guess that'll be a question for me.
Okay, Jamie, sorry.
Yeah. So will you be, if you plan to retire at 62, yes, you will be able to work, but there is an earnings limit. So if you claim Social Security before your full retirement age, that being 66 or 67, there is a limit to how much you can make. So for 2025, that is for this year, that limit for 2025 was $22,320 a year. So that's about $1,860 a month. So if you earn above that limit, Social Security will withhold $1 for every $2 over that limit. And for the year you reach that full retirement age, that being 66 or 67, the limit goes up a little bit for 2025 specifically to $59,520. So the penalty is a little bit less severe. But after you reach your full retirement age, you can work as much as you want without any reduction.
That sounds good. And that information is going to be in one of the manuals that you mentioned, or is that going to be on the website? Where can we find that information?
So you can find that information on aarp.org's website under the Social Security tab. We have a plethora of information there, articles, a YQA tool where you can ask your question and search our frequently asked question bank. And we also just recently released our AI agent, which helps create that conversation that you interact with. It's not based on ChatGPT, if you're wondering. It is actually based on AARP's articles that we have released. That's what feeds the knowledge base. So you're basically going to be using the AI to search our articles to actually have a conversation, if you will.
Very good. That sounds awesome. Can you collect on a former spouse's social security record?
Oh, that'd be another question for me, Social Security. So in short, yes, you can collect on a former spouse's record. If the marriage lasted at least 10 years or more, and you are at least age 62. Fun fact, in America, most divorces end at 8 years. So I get the question often, what if I reach 9 years and 11 months? That does not count. Social Security is strict with the 10-year rule. Now, your own benefit is less than what you would have received from your ex's record. If that's the case, then you will be able to claim on that record. And you do not need your ex-spouse's permission to file for ex-spouse benefits. And it does not affect their benefits either,
Okay.
just to put that out there. Mhm.
What if that spouse is married and has someone else on their plan?
It still would not affect what the current spouse is receiving either if the ex-spouse plans to claim on that work record. I get another question a few weeks ago. If that particular individual, that is the ex-spouse that is, happened to have 3 marriages that all lasted 10 years, then they would have options to where they would claim to what's the highest amount.
And what if I am remarried? Can I claim anything from that former spouse if I was married for the 10 years?
Only if you remarry after the age of 60. Remarrying does affect what you can receive. So 60 if you are not disabled, but if you are disabled, then that is at the age of 50, or caring for a qualified child as well will allow you to claim earlier than 60. But it does come with reductions. So keep that in mind because it is based off of the age at which you claim those benefits, that being
Okay.
your full retirement age.
Okay. Sounds like a little research that needs to be done. What is the difference? And I guess this is Jamie again. What's the difference between SSDI and SSI?
SSI. Now, SSDI, which stands for Social Security Disability Insurance, now that is based on your work history and payroll tax contributions. And that is specifically available to disabled workers and certain family members. While SSI, Supplemental Security Income, is a needs-based program for people with limited income or resources. And that is funded by general tax revenue, not Social Security taxes. So a little different. And it is often paired with Medicaid eligibility as well.
Is it still federal monies?
It is. It is a federal program.
Okay. All right. How does, well, we know that there is going to be a COLA, so let's go to another question. Oh, I know. I wanted to ask, what about elder care attorneys? I know that some people come back and say that they're very expensive. Are there any alternatives to using elder care attorneys? And I think this is a Susan question.
Um, you can look for kind of legal aid departments. There is a resource to find one near you. It's part of ARP Foundation's kind of local resource directory. They do have like a legal tab where you can kind of find your local organization that will help provide those resources at a low cost. So that's an option that you can look into if you want to find someone near you or in the state that your care recipient is in.
If I'm receiving a pension, will my Social Security be less?
That used to be the case in the past. Now, if your pension is from a non-covered employment, meaning basically it didn't pay Social Security taxes, previously windfall or government pension offset would have applied. But as of the 2025 Social Security Fairness Act, that is no longer the case. So this no longer affects what you receive from Social Security since you have a pension. I did see a question in the chat as well. Can you receive SSI and Social Security benefits at the same time? And that's a great question. So in short, yes, you can receive both SSI and Social Security benefits at the same time, but it depends. And you'll hear that a lot with Social Security, but it does depend on your financial situation. So SSI is a needs-based program, again, for people with limited income and resources, versus Social Security benefits, retirement, or SSDI, that disability part, are based on your work history. So if your Social Security benefit is low enough that you will still meet SSI's income and resource limits, you can qualify for both in that case. So SSI will supplement your Social Security payment up to the federal SSI maximum. So receiving Social Security usually reduces the SSI amount because it counts as income. Hope that answers your question.
Thanks for catching those. I was so busy trying to read my other questions here. I didn't see the ones popped up. I see another question. It says, my husband became visually handicapped at age 67 and had to retire. Can he apply for Social Security disability benefits, or is that only for people who are working?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. So if he's at age 67, he is at his full retirement age. So he can apply for Social Security retirement. Social Security disability is for those that have not reached that full retirement age as of yet. So he will be applying for his Social Security retirement. But keep in mind, if he applies for Social Security retirement, he locks in that amount for life and for spousal benefits or any dependent that will claim on his work record. So keep that in mind when he's looking to apply at 67 versus if he can wait until a later year, such as 70.
So can he get the Social Security disability or not?
He cannot.
He
if he's
cannot.
67.
Okay. All right. Don't see anything else popping up in there. I think we've got time for another question. If I file for reduced benefits at age 62, do they increase when I reach my full retirement age? I hear that one a lot myself.
And that's a great question. So when you claim at 62, you lock in that 30% reduction for you or anyone else that will claim on your work record. Once you reach your full retirement age, there's a slight chance it may increase depending on if you're still working and you replace one of your highest paid 35 years that Social Security uses on average to give you the amount that you receive. But keep in mind, since you claimed at 62, you still will have that reduction for life. So keep that in mind when you're looking at when you want to claim and paying attention to how you want to live in retirement and your health and longevity expectations as well when you're looking at when to claim Social Security.
So, Jamie, let me ask, did I hear that correctly? So if the person claimed their Social Security at 62, but they continue to work, and then their newer employment increases the amount of Social Security that I guess goes to their account, they're going to be able to change what their Social Security payment is?
So just to clarify anything, so Social Security takes your highest paid 35 years. So if one of those 35 years was 100,000, for example, and you made 105,000, Social Security will knock off that 100,000, replace it with the 105. So it takes your highest paid. So, and they get that directly from the IRS. So if you claimed at 62 and you continue to work and you replace one of those 35 years with a higher paid year, they will look at that. They will put that into consideration. And then you will see what you might receive. But if you are claiming at 62 and working, you will also be on the hook for the earnings test. So you will already be receiving a reduction in your Social Security payment because you're working while under your full retirement age while also collecting.
Okay, very good. Well, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank the guests. I want to thank our attendees for attending today's session. And don't forget, the recording will be available. But this concludes our event.
One second, there
And
are two questions in the chat that came into the chat. I just wanted Jamie to clarify those two questions. I apologize, Iris.
you're
Okay.
getting,
Which questions are they?
oh, okay. Yeah, gotcha. Thank
Yes.
you.
And I'll
We
read the
missed a couple
questions.
of questions in the chat.
Yep. So the first question from Carl says, if I'm receiving SS disability and 64 years old, through age 67, what happens after that? And that's a great question, Carl. I get that quite often as well. So what happens is Social Security will automatically switch you to retirement benefits. Nothing you have to do. That is something that Social Security does automatically. Sometimes it's automated, sometimes it's manual, but it's nothing you would do. It would just switch to that, and I usually get the follow-up question, will I receive more? There's a slight chance you may receive more, but for most situations, it will be similar to what you were receiving on disability. And I see another question from someone, a Zoom user. I'm 71 and care for an 83-year-old husband with dementia. How can I get paid for caring for him to get the the Social Security points I'm short in? That might be me and you, Susan. I can take the tail end part of that question. So how to get the Social Security points I'm short in, I would assume you're talking about falling short of the credits that you need each year for your 35 years. 40 credits for working 10 years, that would be. That usually comes from paying FICA taxes from your employer or self-employment on earned income. So you will want to seek that from an employer or self-employment if you're looking to try to make up those credits that you're short in. And then I will see if Susan can provide a part to that first section of that question.
The getting paid for care is I probably direct that to ARP Foundation, as they are doing lots of work around paid for care. And so arpfoundation.org on their site, there's a lot of information on that. And I know we're running out of time, so I can't really go into too much detail, but I wanted to give you that resource that the foundation is really focused on that work.
Okay, well, I think at this point we can wrap it up, and we are going to be sending out the link, but I will also want to ask everyone, you're gonna I believe it was put in the chat. There is a survey that we hope that you will complete for us. The survey link is in the chat, and complete that survey to let us know how you enjoyed our program. And also you can share information about what other programs you may be interested in. But we want you to come back and join us for Planning for Retirement, Social Security, and Beyond on Tuesday, December the 2nd at 2 o'clock. And the registration link should be in the chat as well. And that's our December Social Security event link that is being placed up there for everyone. And we want to thank you all for coming. And if you're interested in rewatching this, again, it's going to be on AARP Virginia YouTube page. And we want to give a big thank you to Jamie and Susan for being with us today.
Thank
Look
you,
forward
everyone.
to seeing you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.